rusty. It's just
No worries. Early morning.
okay. Let me announce it that we have started. There we go. And I will double check on stream if everything is working fine, and then we can start the interview. By the way, sorry, I'm looking right side. Just my camera is here. My check on stream if everything is working fine, and then we'll start the interview. By the way, sorry, I'm looking right. Please say something. My camera is here. My
Test. This is our voices.
Fine, and we'll start the interview. By the way, sorry, I'm looking right. Please say something. My camera is here. My
Test.
Okay,
This is our voices.
Okay, fine, and
That's good to hear.
Yep. Okay. Okay, let me sit into my original position here. As I'm always saying, let me know if you are down to start.
We're ready, we're keen, we're excited.
Okay. So welcome everyone in my very new episode. I'm joined with the developers, with the creators, the mastermind. I would like to say that I'm very thankful, very honored for this episode. And like I'm always saying, let's start with the introduction. So please introduce yourself for us.
Lovely to meet you all.
Thank you.
Name's Sam.
I'm Kostya, and we are developers of behind this little studio called Spoonful of Wonder. We're currently based in Melbourne, Australia. And yeah, I'm the head of art and code on the project.
And I'm the head of story. We, of course, did all the roles on the game, everything from sound effects to helping with localization. Those are our main roles. Copycat was our very first game as well. And we know it's not perfect, but we learned a lot along the way. And we hope to make an even better project in the future.
I see. Thank you. Thank you for that. So my very first question would be, what was your very first time and contact with video games as a player, if you remember those times of your past?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up playing Pokemon Blue, Nintendo, Spyro, and so the games that I always would I gravitated towards tended to be like narrative-driven animal games.
I see.
But you were totally different, weren't you?
On my side, it was completely opposite because I grew up in Ukraine. And, you know, the boys playing in a computer club overnight with your last pocket money and like being good at video games, because none of us had computers or consoles at home, like if we don't count like NES with Super Mario kind of stuff. So being good at video games was a bit of a social currency, you know, like you want to be the best Counter-Strike player in the neighborhood. So I grew up playing lots of like competitive multiplayer games like Counter-Strike, Red Alert 2, the Warcraft 3, the Frozen Throne, all the classics that, like, you know, all the internet cafes used to have installed.
And what was your first console?
My first console, like the one I remember, actually, I got into consoles really late. The one I could remember is the first one I bought for myself was PS4. And I was 20 probably, or something like that. So I used to play on my PC for a little bit, but yeah, PS4 was my first one.
My first one was PlayStation 1, and I always played with my sister, and she's younger than me, so we would always pass the controller back and forward.
Couch go up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice. From that point of your life, when you loved playing video games, what was that light bulb moment in your heads when you realized that, okay, now we would like to make a game? Not just love playing video games, but also make them.
It was a bit of a journey because, you know, we grew up playing the games, we loved them. And at some point in life, both of our parents like said, we need to go and find real jobs. So we went the whole journey of like trying to find jobs where we could still be creative, but be employed according to our parents. And that's how we both ended up working as a creative team in advertising.
I see.
So creative team normally has two components. One person's more art-based. They look after the visuals, make everything look pretty. And the other person does the words and helps with the concept. True. And so we would be making 30-second adverts or commercials over the course of a couple of years, but we became bored of them pretty quickly.
And because of that, we gained a little bit of experience in production side of things. You know, we've been to the film studios, we've been to the audio recordings and stuff like that. And we learned how to design things and how to write things. And we started doing some personal projects, and they ranged everywhere from short films to kid books, children books, and stuff like that. And eventually, we came to the realization that since we still loved games, that we pretty much had most of the skills we needed to make a game because we did 3D animation, we did all that stuff, and one thing was missing was coding, and we decided to give it a shot and learn it and see what happens. And 3 years later, here we are.
True. And a very nice game in my belief. So thank you for that. So a more personal question for me would be: were your parents, family members, and close friends supportive about this decision of yours that you made the first step into the video game industry? Because, like you said, both of your parents, childhood, wanted you to get a normal job, as the society standard says. But what about them and their feelings about video games?
They were always supportive in terms of it being a passion. And because for the first couple of years, we still worked our day jobs and we were working on our game in the evenings and on weekends, our family was always cheering us on. When we received funding and went full time, that's when we had to kind of prove to them that being and having a career in video games was an option.
Yeah, my mom was a little bit concerned. She's like, "What do you mean you quitting your job? Like, how are you gonna pay your bills? What about my grandchildren? All that good stuff." So I had to engineer some examples for her. Like, look, mom, this game made $5 million in 1 week, and she's like, "Oh wow!" So obviously that's not the level anywhere near the level of success we got, but just gonna give them optimistic examples. I think it kind of applies to people who do streaming as well, or like do esports. Look, this like famous esport athlete or this famous streamer there, they make millions from making this. I can do the same. So similar strategy I had to apply to not convince my parents, but make them believe in us a little bit.
I see.
But yeah, they were supportive because they knew we are passionate about it. I grew up being very into games, so it made a lot of sense to them.
I see. Do you think, by the way, it's important for you in your life to have a mentally supportive background as you chase your dreams and then you work on video games? How do you feel about this?
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely helps that we are partners in the studio, but we're also partners in life. So we live together and we make things together. So we are never like on our own. There's always someone to we can to talk to, someone to complain to, and our family and our friends have been amazing. Everyone's been so supportive, so it makes a lot of difference. Like, absolutely.
I see. Throughout the process of making Copycat, by the way, what was your favorite moments or parts of the process itself?
Yeah, the process of making Copycat was quite large. We did it over the course of 3.5 years.
I see.
Not all of that was full time, but every weekend we were working on it. For me as a writer, getting the script in a format where voiceovers can happen and we can get a whole studio recorded. It was so exciting. We had lots of different actors come in, read the lines for us, and it just really brought the script to life, and that was really magical for me. What was your favorite moment?
For me, it was probably the moment when the whole game was playable from beginning to an end. It was rough around the edges. It was not tested and probably super buggy, but it's like that milestone where you understand, like, okay, we actually build it. It's there. It exists. It may need a little bit of love and polish, but like it felt like a very big milestone. So that was really exciting.
And I think one of the most humbling parts of our creative process as well is when we had someone play the game for the first time and then they said they actually went out to adopt a cat because they felt so emotionally moved for the story and they wanted to help support the adoption process. And yeah, we very, very humbled.
I see. You have spoken about your favorite parts of the process, but what about your non-favorite parts, so the hardest, most challenging parts of the process of making Copycat?
We're both creative souls and we are really proud of our imagination and our ability to make a creative output. Something that's difficult for us is running the business. We had funding come in, which meant that we needed to be able to pay some people to help us. For example, our composer who made beautiful music for the game. And so we had to then use the analytical side of our brains. We were looking at tax, superannuation, contracts, lawyers, and for us,
the boring stuff we could say, right?
Yeah, that's definitely been the hardest to do that. Yeah. On the other, like from my side of things, also porting to console is still we're still working on it. We're hoping to bring Copycat to consoles.
I see.
And porting has been a journey. We'll just put it that way.
I see.
But it's coming together.
I see. I wanted to ask, by the way, the console ports, but you already then answered my ongoing question. But what about physical editions? Because I'm a fan of physical editions of video games. Are you guys planning to have any physical edition and merchandise, even a plushie of the cat?
Oh, wouldn't that be the dream?
True.
If anyone's there listening, making plushies, let's do it. In terms of physical edition, it would be an ultimate goal. I think that would require a bigger publisher on board, or someone with an expertise who would be willing to help us with retail distribution and investment, that we do not have that skill or knowledge on our own. So we're currently only opting for digital distribution.
I see.
But if opportunity arises, we are going to be 120% in.
I see. There's limited run games, by the way. They are like only making physical editions of video games. I'm not sure if you know about that company, but they do. Yeah, they were the first ones. Yeah. So I believe that all of us creators who create our own crafts, we always tend to put our inner self into the craft to make, even if it's experiencing loss, love, anything positive or negative in our past. Is this statement of mine true for your work when you create something, even if it's video games? And if your answer is yes, what examples could you name and could you bring us to the table?
Absolutely. What you've said is very beautiful, and
thank you.
It's beautiful because you do, as creators, put your heart and soul into everything that you make. For us, we were reflecting on the notions of home. What did home mean for us? I grew up in Australia, and I grew up between Australia and New Zealand. So my parents were constantly moving countries, and as a result, I went to a lot of different schools. So my idea of home was very fleeting.
I see.
Whereas,
my idea of home, because I was born and raised in Ukraine and my whole family is still there, is something that can, eventually out of nowhere become not accessible to me.
True.
And I can't go back home now because of the situation, and that's been challenging. So
I can relate to that, by the way. Sorry for interrupting. I can relate to that because I was spending my whole childhood in Ukraine, so I can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think those experiences are so important, and we wanted to kind of tell a story that addressed what does home mean for us. So in our game, Dawn goes on a journey. She has to work out, where does she belong in the world? What is her role now? What is home for her? Whether home tends to be something that relates to the people in your life, but what she realizes it actually relates to where she is needed most and her purpose. So that was our exploration of the theme. We also touched on themes of loss, of emphysema, of family, a complex family system. Of course, we were reflecting with what was happening with my family, how my grandmother wasn't able to care for a pet. And so we also wanted to channel those more complexities in our script.
I see.
Yeah.
I appreciate your honesty, by the way, both of your honesty about this topic. Thank you for that. I know it's hard. It will be hard from me to ask this question without spoilers, but let's face this question. So there is a scene in the game which I was very interested about because it's a really emotional and touching scene, and also a scene that people can think about even they experience it or not. There is this without spoilers, saying the pillow scene when the daughter picks up the pillow and the cat scratches the window. I'm very much interested what was the influence behind that scene, because it's a very like thoughtful scene of how people behave in such a situation in which the daughter was in. So what influenced that? If it's not a very personal question, of course, and you can answer that. If no, that's very fine. So I don't mind.
We'd love to explore that. So the scene in question has the character of May. She's the daughter in the family. She's about 40 years old. And she is going through a lot of stress. She's trying to look after her mother, who's very unwell, and there's financial difficulties, there's emotional difficulties, and I won't spoil it, but she does an action that tends to be a bit more of an intrusive thought.
True.
And we wanted to show how far she was going to go in order to kind of take the problem away. And so it was an example of looking at right versus wrong, about black versus white, and morally, where did she stand, and what could she commit in doing this horrible action. Of course, she realizes that the action's an intrusive thought, and she decides that she's not going to move forward with it, but we still wanted to see her struggle.
I see. Why do you think, by the way, people put others in boxes if it would happen that they would make this act like the daughter did not do? Because it happened, right? You can read about a lot of these examples in the news that some people did this action that the daughter did not do in your game. So why do you think like people do not go behind the scene or try to understand these people and put themselves in their shoes?
I think it depends on the kind of person you are, and if you're a person to pass judgment really quickly. I think a lot of people realize that when individuals are in a very high and very stressful scenario, it is what they do might seem wrong or feel wrong or be wrong, but just like good antagonists in any story, their intentions are always pure and their intentions are always right. So it is a big balance. I guess we're lucky in the game that we can explore those different angles and get empathy for the audience members and the players.
True, very true. Thank you, by the way, for your honesty. And sorry if it was a very personal question, but I was very interested in this topic. So thank you for your honesty again. Okay, so what was the influence, by the way, the graphical side of the game? Because we talked about the influence of this story, but what about the graphical side?
Yeah, from a side of graphics, we tried to channel a bit of our cinematography experience from making short films, advertising, and all the work with camera we've done with lots of cutscenes and lots of interesting angles. That was inspired by cinematography and also inspired by type of content we grew up with. So the colors, the lighting, it's because we both grew up watching Disney and Pixar later, and a bit of anime like Makoto Shinkai and Miyazaki.
Cartoon Network.
And Cartoon Network as well.
Yeah, nice.
All that kind of blend together into a style that we decided to go with, but also some of the technical limitations applied because we are a core team of 2 people, so we can't make everything. So the style and design we chose to go with for Copycat had to be not too unique in order for us to be able to supplement our asset bank with pre-made assets, because we would never be able to finish the game if we had to design every single 3D model.
Understandable. Yeah,
so we had to find this balance between art direction and making it flexible enough to be able to quickly slot in some of the existing assets that we could buy online. So that's where we found this balance visually.
I see. A question that also goes to both of you: when did you discover your own style in writing and also you in art? So when was the time when you discovered both of your styles in writing and in art?
For writing, we always wanted to explore this thematic of love, of people wanting to connect but having trouble difficulty doing so. And our stories started to emerge when we were in ads. So we would be given a brief for a hair product, and we would try to tell a story about a creature that was looking to improve its hair so it could fit in somewhere at school. Like, we would come up with like these stories, and then when we were working in short film, we had a story about a woman who owned a balloon shop, and a man who had a cactus, and like their relationship. And so we would, no matter what medium we were in, we still wanted to try to tell and explore these kind of stories because we're passionate about it.
Yeah. Visually and art direction wise, we started exploring the style we want to work in through our personal projects. As Sam mentioned, short film, animations, advertising. And I think at this stage, hopefully one day someone will see our game and be like, oh, this is Spoonful of Wonder game. Currently, I don't think we're there yet. But we're still discovering, we're still exploring and finding where we want to be. So eventually we'll end up somewhere.
I see. Is it, by the way, always the story that comes first when you create video games or any form of art together?
Yeah, we concept together. I think that's one of our greatest strengths. We might not have a lot of history writing feature films or a lot of history being an amazing drawer, but concepting is something we've always done together, and we would always come up with lots and lots and lots of ideas.
Yeah, and we like wrapping our gameplay around the story we want to tell.
I see.
That's why our games are not necessarily super complex mechanically, but we're just telling the story with some interactions, some choices, some activities people can do. We're really inspired by companies like Don't Nod and Quantic Dreams, where their games are almost like a little bit for cinema, but interactive. We really love what they do, and we really learn
also
a lot from that.
They do the same, like this choice based. Yeah. Let's see. You mentioned the topic of love, by the way. Why do you think like most people, or at least a lot of people nowadays, seems hard to care about each other? Like, why do you think that is happening? And it's evolving into this greater hateful and not caring about each other behavior. Or at least from my experiences, that is what I see. I'm not sure what do you experience in life, but that's what I experienced so far in the past years. So why is that happening?
It's a very highly philosophical question that
I know, but you touched a lot of these topics. That's why I'm asking you. So I'm sure that you have opinions on this topic.
We wanted to tell a story between an owner who wants to keep her pet but having trouble doing so, and a pet that wants to be loved but having trouble doing so, and having them connect at the end of the story was the biggest win for us. We found that love is difficult sometimes to express human to human, but human to animal, it's so much easier. Pets see us on good days and bad days.
True. They're always there. Yeah.
Through self. And what we wanted to do was have players hug their pets at the end of the day and just really appreciate them.
And we think exploring the story through the lens of the pet was a very good exercise for us to see it from a different angle. And we just hope that people treat each other better.
True. You mentioned, by the way, that people treat animals with more respect and with more love. Do you think that it will ever can come to a point where like people will treat each other better as well, like they do to pets? Can it happen?
We hope so.
We can only hope, right?
Especially like your reflection on the war.
Yeah, it's there's no need to be mean or bad to anyone.
True.
Everyone's different. Everyone's going through different things, and all we can do is hope and be good people ourselves, and hope the world follows.
True. You also mentioned like having a lot of ideas. Do you have already like ideas for your next game or games?
Yes. We really love telling an animal-centric story. I think brings down the walls and it lets people experience these moments of wonder. And so we really wanted to keep that at the core. This time we're going to take the story underwater, which will be really fun. So it will be another maybe 4 to 6 hour narrative driven experience where we transform the character through this animal lens. And hopefully we teach our players about love, life, and being a better person at the end of the day.
And it's not in development yet. We're still porting Copycat and finishing the development on the first project. So probably not going to be announced or out anytime soon. But I think we locked in the concept that we started exploring.
I appreciate the informations about that. Thank you. By the way, what was the influence behind those segments of Copycat where you could like be the hunter? Let's call the cat as a hunter, right? So what was the hunter segments and the influence behind those segments? Because it was also a very unique thing, in my opinion, that you could feel the other like way of thinking of cats, right? So what was the influence behind that?
Pretty much it came from the limitation we had in game that cat is a non-verbal character.
I see.
It's not just talk to the camera or someone to express how they feel. So we didn't want to make a talking cat. So we started improvising and thinking about how else can we tell the story. That's why in the game you hear the narrator, the nature expert, who becomes the inner voice of a cat. Then you see the text pop-ups that show what cat thinks about it. And dream sequence was one of the other ways we found to showcase like metaphorically what's going on through their head and in what mental state the character is by transforming the environment around them, by building these levels and giving them these activities to further explore how they feel and what they're going through.
Yeah, so if the character's having a rough day, the dream will be a bit more aggressive, it'd be deeper and darker. But if Dawn's having a really good day, you can see that she feels on top of the world. She's able to hunt and she's able to make some strides forward.
And after all, we think every cat dreams of being a panther. So
true. Very true. Probably very true. Yeah. Why a cat, by the way? It's an ultimate question, right? Which just have to be asked. Why a cat? Why not a dog or a lion?
We know cats better than any other animal.
I see.
So personally, we want to tell a story through that lens. But why else a cat?
It's a fun character to work with. It's a pain to make a controller for, especially with free jump. That's what we wanted to be able to jump everywhere and at all times. So that took a while. So it's still okay. But it's just a fun character. There's so many activities you can do as a cat,
true.
Everyone likes them. So having this perspective of innocence and being liked by everyone and being cute and fluffy.
But also cats can be like a fly on the wall. They're not out to please their master. They have their own agenda. And so it was really fun to pick a character that had its own opinions on things, had its own attitude, but also a pet that essentially needs a home and needs to be loved.
I see. Throughout the story, by the way, what was your goal with the length of the story when you started to write the story itself, the plot itself?
Mm-hmm. We came from a background of writing 60-second commercials and writing maybe like 8-minute short films. So jumping to almost a feature film length script was huge for us. So we wanted to make something manageable, something that we could finish and get to the finish line as well. We decided to tell a 3-act transformative narrative structure. So we follow a bit of a hero's journey. The character has these highs and lows, and ultimately at the end feels like they matter in the world. So we decided to go for about a 3-hour game to match a 3-hour script structure.
I see. Was it, by the way, always intentional at the start when you started thinking of the plot that you will end up having a more happier ending than like people wanted to or was thinking about? Because I remember myself when playing it, I thought that, okay, it's the end, but no, it was like more of a happy end, which I love, but was it always intended to be a happy end about the game?
I think events are important in the story.
Okay.
Like it could not be. Like some people see it differently, and
No, I agree.
Um,
I'm just asking if it was always like that you wanted to have a happy ending at the game.
we don't want to spoil anything, but yes, we wanted the sentiment to be there from the beginning, I think.
I see. Okay.
No spoilers.
Yeah. That's why I try to ask without spoilers. What about the story? What is your favorite sequence of the story? Again, question goes both to. So what without spoilers, if you can mention, like.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. That's a beautiful question. My favorite moments in the game is when Dawn and Olive have a moment to truly connect. And Dawn is this little thing looking up at this big Olive, and Olive sees Dawn as the love of her life, and she's so precious, but she desperately wants her to love. And there's that beautiful push pull as they almost do a bit of a dance to get to know each other. Those scenes are my favorite. I particularly like the moment where Olive says to Dawn, she says, like, what's wrong? And Dawn, of course, can't talk back because she's a cat. The only thing she can do is meow. And I thought that was a really lovely moment to represent how one-sided the relationships can be, even though they both have their hearts on the plate.
I see. What about you?
I think I'll go, because Sam mentioned the story side of things. I'll go from probably gameplay mechanics.
Okay.
And my favorite parts are where you have a little bit of freedom to explore.
I see.
I think these scenes convey really well the size of the world, but also the emptiness that may come with it.
I see.
If that makes sense. And being able to, just be a cat in general, the fun parts to balance the darker bits out, that was quite fun to build, and still loving experiencing them.
I see. More personal
and also
question. No, sorry.
Oh yeah, the
the purr button.
Oh, okay.
Controller rumble. Yeah, I love the controller rumbles when you hold the purr.
Nice. How have you changed, by the way, as a person in other territories of your own life from being a game developer? So what effects did the game developer journey had on your other territories of your own life? If there was any, of course, any change or effects.
It changed a lot because before we started the journey, we were working in advertising. So we were working in office 9 to 5, and we loved what we did. We loved our team and we loved the work, but it changed completely. Now we pretty much full-time game dev, and that affects every aspect of our life.
I see.
We work from home. We have different groups of people we now do. Like we get to travel while developing and to the festivals. So pretty much changed everything in our life.
And I think emotionally, the game has changed our life because it shows us how important these relationships are. We get messages from people talking about how their cat meant everything to them. And then when the cat passed away, they didn't quite know what to do anymore. They found it really difficult to cope. And hearing those stories and hearing how important pets are in our lives really made us appreciate them. And also appreciate the friendship that they offer. So when people do lose their pets, to give them the correct amount of love and an unlimited amount of love because they're going through a really hard time.
I see. Sorry. For you as a creator, which is like more close to you from the story aspect? Is it like the human connection between each other, so the mother and the daughter, or the cat and the main hero? Because it's like we can divide the story to two main segments, if I can say it like that, right? So the human connection between humans, and also the connection between a human and a pet. Which is more close to you or more important to you for your life? that you're more connected?
Yeah, we tried to do both in the story,
I see.
and that's in the third act. We hope that both the human side of the story and the animal side of the story is pushed forward enough that they feel whole and feel complete.
Yeah, and I think we find connection to both sides of the story. Otherwise, I don't think we'll be telling it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It will be very split between, and they kind of complement each other. So even though they feel like two parts of the story, it's
no, it's understandable. I was just asking which is more important to you personally, like for as a creator in your personal life, which is more important to you, if you can choose, of course, because it's a hard question to choose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would say how these two stories come together is where it's the special moment happens.
I see. Okay. What about, by the way, the future? So you mentioned like your future game, but how hard or easy for you it is to leave the past project behind and to move on to another project? Because it's also a topic that was brought up by a lot of developers whom I spoke to, that for a lot of them it's very hard to leave a past project behind and to move on forward to another project.
Yeah, beautiful question, Ottó.
Thank you.
Yes, great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
In one way, you never do leave them behind.
Okay.
It keeps coming back.
Sorry.
It would be obviously sad to leave Copycat behind, but as well, obviously from the technical perspective, we're still going to be supporting it and porting it to console. And from the story and emotional side of things, we are going to build upon it. So we are the Copycat and the new game are not going to be based in the same universe, but we're going to take our experience and what we learned about storytelling and about games and move it to the next project. So it's not like we're starting from scratch. I think we're just continuing our journey. So I don't think we'll feel like we necessarily leaving Copycat behind. It will always be with us. And yeah.
And as creatives, we are so desperate for people to enjoy our art. We want people to love it, and we want people to feel big emotions when they interact with our game. And so working on a project for almost 4 years, it's very hard to forget about it. You don't move on, and you don't want to leave it behind either.
Yeah, on like a daily basis, we just have a conversation and someone says something that sounds like a line from the cat game, from Copycat game, and we just start quoting it, and like there's so many inside jokes now.
But I think the lifespan of games are quite long now. Like we're playing Detroit Become Human at the moment, and that's a game that's been around for 8 years. Life is Strange just had its 10-year anniversary. You can keep revisiting games
and backlogging even if you haven't played it through. Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned, by the way, working full-time game dev. How do you balance your free time, work time, family time, everything in your life?
We're trying to be really strict with our what is work time and what's not, because there is a big danger of just going down this rabbit hole of always working. And
did it happen, by the way? Did it happen?
Yes, but we love what we do, and so it's
true.
Natural.
It's passion, right? So it's
the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is you have an idea, so you turn to each other and you talk about it. Or the last thing at night, you are still working through a problem, and so you need a little bit of feedback.
Or even, I'm this kind of person who, like, if I have some problem to solve, if I'm working on a piece of code or something and there's a bug, I may not be able to fall asleep until I find a solution for that. So quite a few times, we just need to go to bed, and I was like, no, I need to stay up and fix it. Otherwise, like, so I can finally relax. And there is a danger of like working together, working from home, that there is no physical separation like we used to have in advertising, when you're not in the office, you're not touching your work. Now, work is here available at all times. But yeah, we're trying not to crunch. We're trying not to work too much, and prioritize our health and just be very responsible with it. Especially now, we like don't have deadlines to deliver, so we are trying to not to work extra hours, which is okay. We start this time, we end this time. This is all we have for the day. Just trying to find the balance.
I see.
But at the same time, respecting the creative process and knowing that in the middle of the night, it's very normal to get an idea and very normal to want to share. And so kind of channeling as much of our creativity as we can into a format that will give us a little bit of a work-life balance. But it's hard when you love what you do.
True.
It's a marathon, though. It's a marathon. Yeah.
True.
You want to be ready for the long run.
True. Did it ever, by the way, happen that you mentioned like having an idea at the end of the night or at the beginning of the night that you had a very crazy and good idea, but you couldn't write it down because you had did not have the opportunity for it? Like you were on a train or somewhere?
Yeah, always.
That's why like a little note app on our phones has so much unstructured ideas, like Google. It's a Google Keep. Just everything goes in there, and then you look at them and you're like, what was I trying to say there? I have no idea. But good ideas that are worth exploring, you usually remember them quite well.
I see. You also mentioned like having bugs in your game. What was the hardest bug to find in your game throughout the journey of making Copycat? Like the very or most challenging bug that you had to find?
A few things that took a while to figure out. Like it's usually compatibility between different plugins we're using, because we're using Fmod for audio, and then we started implementing that with PlayStation SDK, and things had to align perfectly. So it was a bit tricky to find these things. And then the hardest bugs to find are the ones we cannot replicate on our side. So when we had people testing the game for us, someone reports, hey, this happens in this level, and we just run it, and it doesn't happen for us. So we need to understand why that's the case. Is it a human mistake? Did people like not tell us the whole story, or is it a hardware thing, or it's the hardest bugs to fix are the ones you cannot replicate. It takes a while to figure out why exactly that's the case, and could have been solved with better like a debugging and reporting mode. But again, we're new to this, so it is what it is.
So we have a funny bug, and that's when you are in the paint scene in the study, and you put your paw prints in the paint, and you can walk around the house. Somehow there was a perfect circle done in one of the rooms. And we had no idea why this perfect circle kept appearing.
Yeah, that was really confusing. And then we played it over and over again, and we figured out that it was connected to you as a cat jumping in a box. And the script was bugged. So instead of disabling the character when you go first person, it actually just made character invisible. So character was able to go through the wall and just kept rotating on the floor, making circles.
Wow.
And it was really weird.
We thought it was aliens.
The ghost in the box, right? Nice. You mentioned, by the way, playing video games. How have you changed as a player now that you make your own games?
Definitely more analytical. Now you play the game. Even like when we were playing Detroit last night, I was like, okay, Sam, look, there are some choices you get to make. Let's see if camera changes as soon as you press the button, or does it leave you like a little bit of time to animate out the interface, the UI, and then it changes, because there's been the whole process of us working and trying to synchronize the music with player interaction. So we definitely started with pausing games more. We discussing them and like learning from them. Yeah,
because there's so many really creative and clever techniques out there to convey story, and so we probably are playing more games together now, and it might take us a little bit longer to get through the game, but we can laugh about it, we can cry about it, and we can just admire the amazing games that are out there.
I see. Throughout the process of making Copycat, was there, by the way, anything that you needed to cut out from the game? And if yes, could you like replace it at a later date to your project, like reuse it?
think there's been few locations we built early on because I started building locations before the script was fully locked. So there were a few things we built that we end up not using or that changed a lot
I see.
by the time script was locked. So there's been few things that we didn't use just because it was not needed anymore.
We also had a really interesting predicament where we needed to convey the meowing noises of the cat. And because Dawn has a variety of meows and roars and hisses, we couldn't just go to YouTube and like find them. We needed or stock. It was very actually quite hard to try to find them. So at one stage we thought it'd be a really good idea if like we made the sound effects and seeing if we could edit it in some program to kind of change it. And that was a terrible idea. It was horrible, and we very quickly got rid of that.
That was so weird. Because like, yeah, the meowing is fine. You can find lots of very good meows in like the audio banks we used. There are lots of good options, and obviously our family cat was able to give us a very good range of meows. We've talked him for a couple of days with the microphone, but like the angry cat sounds, because like we wouldn't do anything to make him angry. That was us sitting there.
Yeah, so we ended up having our composer go through hundreds of libraries to try to find the right hissing noises, and that's how we got the array of cat voices in there.
I see. How hard, by the way, or easy was it for you to find the voice actors and also the music composer, as you mentioned, working with them?
For the voice actors, we were lucky that every single voice actor was a friend of ours.
I see.
Typically, they came from a theatre background, so they were used to performing on a stage. And so for some of them, it was their very first time in a sound booth. We had David Malloy, who was the voice of the nature expert, did a wonderful job. Emily and Steph, who did May and Olive. It was most their first times voicing for a video game, which was really exciting. We had a lot of smaller voiceover parts where we had some friends read the roles, and we also had some streamers give their voice to us. So a lot of the voices in the neighborhood scene were some of our favorite streamers who would voice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in terms of our composer, Daniel Bunting, he's super talented Sydney-based composer, and we actually knew him because of our work in short film.
I see.
And we just happened to be in the same circles of like film making, in Sydney. And he helped us with a few projects just to, put them together. So when we finally were making a commercial projects where we had budget to get him and help us properly, we were super excited to get him on board and contract him to write his beautiful soundtrack. So that was very rewarding to do the full circle.
Yeah, it was his first game as well, so he did a lot of experimenting, and we all were able to take through a project that we were really proud of in the end.
I see. Since you worked with others like voice actors and the music composer, do you believe, by the way, in perfect synergy between team members, as like you mentioned, working with others? Or is it something that develops out throughout the process of working together with others?
I think both ways. Like you obviously develop a bit of chemistry and you develop the ways to work together over time.
I see.
I think you need to ensure that the styles and the goals and work ethics are compatible, because those are things that you cannot adjust as easily.
Yeah, if you've got any audience members watching today that are in the game dev world, making their first project, something I think to look at or talk about at the beginning is about communication styles and finding your collaborators if they have a similar communication style. Do you work really well over the phone or over the video? Do you prefer Messenger? Do you prefer weekly checkups or monthly checkups? And just having those conversations really early on in the creative process helps when things come to crunch and you need to work really quickly and make a lot of decisions really fast.
I see. You also mentioned at the beginning of our interview that you always want to challenge yourself for your future projects in the video game industry and working on games. What challenges would you like both of you to face for your future as a video game developer? So how would you like to evolve your knowledge in the video game development scene?
On art and code side of things, I am actually probably digging myself like into a rabbit hole, but I'm gonna switch to Unreal Engine and see if grass is greener on the other side, because the project, the idea we have kind of would really benefit from that visual fidelity, and because Copycat was mostly built in visual scripting, which is a node-based programming that is similar to Unreal Engine blueprints. I'm very excited to try to see how that comes together. So that will be my challenge for the next while.
And my challenge is learning how to tell stories with branching narratives. For Copycat, we worked in a nodal story style, which meant that there might be two options that branched out and then came back very quickly, and the story progressed. So we only really had one ending. And that was really good at the time because that was where our skills were. Something we'd like to challenge ourselves, and particularly myself in the future, is to see if we can give players more options to feel, and then potentially
games, I guess.
Yeah, you got it.
I see. Thank you. Sorry, by the way, for interrupting you. You mentioned at the beginning of our interview that there were some years that you weren't working as a game developer, right? What was like the choice behind this decision that it wasn't like your first move, that you went into like full-time game dev or to work on video games? Like it took a while for you. What was the causing effect behind this decision? Because you mentioned that you always wanted and you always dreamed about making games, right? But what was stopping you for like making the first move, the first step?
We obviously, as we mentioned before, our families insisting of us having a real job.
Yeah.
But also us not being sure that we can pull it off.
I see.
You know, making games sounds like a much bigger undertaking than writing a little story or making 3-minute short film, and like those things are really hard themselves as well.
True.
But we just we never thought we were ready to make a game until some point we're like, all right, let's list the skills we have and what we can learn, and we're still learning, but it just kind of clicked eventually that okay, I think we're ready.
Beautifully said.
I see. Okay. Are you down, by the way, to go into some community-oriented questions before I ask some more closing questions? Let us know, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's early morning on my end, but let us know if there is any question. Hölgyek, urak, ugye bármilyen kérdés van, nyugodtan kérdeztek. Any question? Bármilyen kérdés? Let us know. Do you feel like, by the way, now that while we are waiting for some questions, I will also ask my questions as well. So do you feel like now that you started working on video games and you launched a full game, now you're at the right spot, right time, right place in your life, and you found yourself? Like you mentioned that it was always a dream, right? So, or is it something that you would also like to do in the future, like a movie or anything that it's still a dream to you?
Found our home in video games. Okay. We have found our community. We have found other game developers that have become friends. We feel challenged in this medium. We know this medium's great for telling really intimate stories, and I think we're really grateful that we found ourselves in this position.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I want to highlight the community and the importance of it. It's like amazing, especially. Obviously, we work in Australia, and that's the community we're exposed to, and we could not wish for better community. We used to work in Sydney, now we're in Melbourne. Both cities have thriving communities. We have lots of wonderful support from both state level and government level for the game dev. There are beautiful events like shouts to PAX Australia and others like South by Southwest and lots of others. So we are very lucky and we're very happy to be here.
And also our digital community, players that have felt really empowered, that have reached out, our streamers that we've really befriended, and we know that these connections that we have now are going to really matter in the future because you're able to then share your new product and you've got that rapport already built up and that relationship always built up. And so we're not perfect and we're still learning, but we're hoping that video games is something we're going to spend the next couple of decades in.
I see. Speaking of, by the way, video games, as you mentioned that you love playing a lot of video games, but which is your favorite? It's also easier, right, to hard to ask which is the favorite. So I'm the devil right now asking which is your favorite game to play, but yeah, I'm asking it.
It's hard to pick one.
Yeah, I know. Or you can pick 3 or 4 if like.
I'll probably say Mafia, actually. Mafia the Sequels.
Okay.
The good old with a wonderful remaster as well.
First one, nice.
That was a beautiful story. It was great mechanics. I really enjoyed both original and remaster.
Okay.
It's a very special place in my heart.
Nice.
Yeah, and for me, Pokemon, hands down. It was one of the first games I started playing. It is everything. It's just such a big world and it makes you feel really empowered as the player. I particularly like the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DS games that came out as well because it was the first time that I felt like I was actually stepping into the shoes of a character and their relationship and friendship that they share. And so, yeah, really love the franchise.
I see. For your future projects, by the way, what topics would you also like to touch? If we can talk about that as well. As you mentioned, like you always want to have an animal in your stories, but what topics would you like to touch in your future projects, if you can talk about that as well? What topics are more important to you in your life?
We're talking about complex family relationships. We are talking about mental health, and we're talking about hope. Those are the 3 themes that we are looking at in the future.
I see. Was it, by the way, that all these topics were always important for you, both of you, or was it something that developed out throughout the journey and the experiences of your life?
I think it's been always important.
I see.
Something always good to reflect, something we had experience with. So yeah, it's important to tell the story that you believe in, and important to tell the story that you know how to tell. So it's always been there.
And what helped you keep yourself honest with these stories and telling these stories, right? And to stick honest to yourself and to these stories when telling them?
There's a lot of vulnerability that you put out when you're a creative person.
True. That's why I asked it. Yeah, true.
And you hope that the story or artwork or theatrical performance that you make is gelling with people and they feel that they've connected with the project. So it is really scary as game makers creating something that we hope, people will enjoy. We typically challenge ourselves by pitching the project to people. That's a really good way to get feedback. We have table reads of the script where we can have people ask questions and explore our theme in slightly different ways. And then anything else that we do to keep ourselves on top of our themes?
Just talking about it, being analyzing it critically, kind of taking a step back and seeing it from the other side, seeing how it may impact people, seeing how it may be received. It's important to make sure we do our due diligence with storytelling.
Yeah, and we're covering sensitive topics as well, and so we hope the players play at their own pace. They reach out if they need help. They find an avenue or a space to talk about some of the feelings or some of the thoughts that might have arisen due to playing the game.
I see. You talked about, by the way, players' feedback. How do you manage and balance your vision and having also players' feedback? Because I think it's also something that is very important throughout the journey of a video game developer.
Yeah, feedback's always tricky. Like there are two sides of it. There's stuff that's more technical, reporting bugs or reporting missing features. That's easy. That's like we just look at it, see if lots of people have an issue with one thing, we fix it. If people request certain features, like for example, in the beginning of the process, we didn't have an option to select the color of the cat.
Oh, okay.
And then we posting some footage and we received feedback from players.
This
that
was one of the favorite scenes of the players. I remember that, yeah, when they played it.
And someone said like, "Oh, I would love to play as my cat who just recently passed," and it touched us so much. They're like, "Oh, this is beautiful. We need to add this." And obviously, we evaluating. We can't take all the feedback.
True, it's
on board.
understandable. Yeah.
We're a small team, so we just evaluate. We see what think fits, what we think we're able to achieve ourselves, and try to add it. But working with the community has been very helpful and has been very great. So yeah, we're just always listening and always trying to make the best product.
I see. It's also a very nice thing to see from both of you that you were always down to communicate with players and everyone on your Twitter and other social pages. Was it always intentional to be like that around your projects before you started working on video games? Because it's not common, right? That most of the developers are so open-minded with talking with their community. So not all of the developers do that. What helps you go on this journey of being open-minded about talking with players and the community members and everyone?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think one unique thing about developers is we have a lot of skills and we're generalists in a lot of different areas. And so we are having to do the business side, the creative side, work on the project, tech.
I see.
Building community is a small part in a very big pie.
True.
Sometimes we miss things, and sometimes we are unable to communicate with players as well as we might. But since doing Copycat, we've learned that it needs to take up a much bigger role, because this community is so excited for your game, and it gives you an opportunity to really connect with them. And so we've been trying to answer all the tweets, we've been trying to answer all the emails.
And it's hard not to care, because it is our creative baby, you know. It's like
true.
We want to talk about it. Of course we want to talk about it. It's important to us, and so we're just trying to find the balance where
I respect
we don't
that, by the way. Yeah. What would be your advice, by the way, for those people who work in the video game industry, either starters, either those who are like following their dreams for so many years now? What would be your advice for those people who work in the video game industry?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, your voice is sorry. Your voice is cutting out. You started to lag. Just
Can you
one
hear
second.
now?
Yeah, but you're lagging somehow.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's fine. Thank you.
Awesome. My advice is to find yourself a team. Try to collaborate with as many people as possible, because you can't do it on your own. It is always a lot smoother of a ride when you've got a best friend with you that can help you through the whole journey. Kostya does so many things that I don't have the skill set for, and we're able to balance ourselves out. Same with our composer. We would never have got the music if he hadn't put love into the project. So I recommend for all emerging game developers to reach out to your friends, to your family, to your network, to see if they can help. Just even put like one piece of the puzzle in, and then eventually you'll make the full puzzle and you'll have your full project.
Beautiful. Absolutely agree with Sam. It's very, very important. From my side of things, one thing I would probably say, we can talk about this for hours, but one thing, if I was to pick one advice, which goes a little bit against of what your typical Reddit forum would advise. You know how for the first-time developers, everyone says, make something small, make
Yeah,
something
yeah, a lot of them says that. Yeah.
tutorial, and I totally see where it's coming from, and these people totally have a point.
True.
But not everyone's the same.
True.
And I know if we started working on something small, something we were not
It wouldn't be
excited
Copycat,
about,
right? And it wouldn't be you that much, I guess.
yeah, and like we just wouldn't have enough passion to finish it.
I see.
And finishing the project in game dev is the biggest achievement because so many games never get finished.
True.
And just do something you're passionate about. And if you're not passionate about doing Blender donut tutorials, go for something bigger and learn on the way. It's there is no one fit all kind of answer, and just explore and do what works for you in your practice.
True. What was the idea behind like the decision of the engine that you chose to work in? Because you mentioned like switching to Unreal Engine, right? But I was curious, what was the decision behind this engine that you use for Copycat?
Currently, Copycat was built in Unity for primary reasons. One, again, because it was our very first time, so Unity seemed like it was an engine that had, and I think it is the case, don't quote me on that, but I think Unity was an engine with more resources, more tutorials available.
I see.
So it seemed more approachable for a first-time developer, because we had this like sort of growth mindset, I don't know what you call it, that we just come up with stuff first and then we'll figure out how we make them. And Unity had so much documentation, so much tutorials, and Unreal is really good with that too. But it just seemed like it was smoother start with Unity, and that was one reason. And other reason was that it's easier to make multi-platform games on Unity, like porting to consoles in terms of performance. That's why we use URP as our render pipeline. Porting is not easy, but
you mentioned that, again. Yeah.
I'm happy I'm not porting on a Unreal project right now. So.
I see. What would be the ultimate message if you would happen to talk about that too of Copycat? Because you talked about the topic, the influence of the story itself, but what was the message that you always wanted to give to the players, the consumers of the form of art that you made? Because I believe that all creators who make any type of forms of art, they always have an intentional message to give to the consumers of that forms of art.
There's one thing we want people to do after playing our game is to go and hug their cat, or hug their pet, because they're beautiful, they have pure souls, and we totally don't deserve them as humans.
It's true.
Just go and give them.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's all we want.
I see.
Little step.
I see. Thank you, by the way. Thank you for your time and honesty. I appreciate it. Thank you so much that you joined us for today's episode of My Dev Life. And thank you everyone who was watching it this early morning or will be watching back on Twitch or later date on YouTube with the intro, outro, and everything as well. Thank you everyone who joined us for today's episode. Have a great day. Don't forget to try out the demo of Copycat and also buy it if you love the concept of the game. Thank you everyone, and thank both of you that you joined us for today's episode. Bye everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.